Welcome back to Radio Taiwan International. You're listening to Geek Out. What's your cup of tea, tickles your fancy, or floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. I'm your host, Michelle Chang, and today in the studio we have a visitor from Australia, Gateway Games, otherwise known as Cody.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So what are we geeking out about today?
Well, we can geek out about almost anything related to tabletop gaming. I dabble in a bit of all of it since I was a wee teen and started my days with Steve Jackson's Dungeoneer, if anyone remembers that.
I remember that, but I've never played it.
Right, and they started with those sort of choose-your-own-adventure books.
Well, okay, let's start from the beginning. You said a wee tabletop gamer, so a wee nerd. How did you get into all of this stuff, or were you always a child who was more inclined towards...
I was definitely a child that was always more inclined to that sort of stuff. I like reading fantasy novels for a start, like David Eddings, Raymond Feist, that sort of stuff that, came out in like the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yes.
Probably showing my age a bit there. But
But yeah, you read a lot of fantasy novels, and you and your friends, did you guys play a lot of tabletop games?
We did. My neighbor started me on Dungeoneer, which was like I suppose you'd call it the D&D version of those Steve Jackson books where you'd create your own adventures and go on, and you just roll 2 dice and add a number, and that was it. That's so simple. Thinking back, it's like, it's so simple. Can we just go back to that, please?
Right. Games have gotten, hot take, many kinds of games have gotten super crunchy, so much so that they're actually very intimidating for new gamers or gamers who are not math inclined, myself included.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
There's
we actually met through Chris Carnahan and Carney Sideshow, which was an online streaming platform on Twitch. And I think one of our first adventures that we ever played, you wrote.
I think so. It was the first one that you did play on stream, if I remember.
Battle of the Bards. Because
I used to run Gateway Games on Twitter until Twitter happened and became X.
Don't even get me started on that.
That's a completely different topic that we won't get into.
Yes.
So I've jumped off that platform, and since I've sort of changed careers, I've sort of cut back a bit on the gaming spectrum, stepped back from D&D a bit because I just got tired of it.
There's a lot of controversy and drama that's happened around specifically Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast and the Hasbro absorption. Is that the word for it?
Yeah, where they've sort of taken over all that stuff. But it wasn't so much that for me. It was more just the system was not feeding what I sort of wanted to play. But I mean, I'm a forever DM. I have not
my
played
condolences.
many games. So I started making my own system, cater for what I wanted.
Now, the history of gaming didn't quite allow for so much freedom in the past. What I've seen, nobody liked COVID. COVID was horrible, and it really, it was a terrible situation for the entire world. But what it did do was it created an explosion of content creation of people who discovered this kind of tabletop gaming that at that point during COVID was being played online on multiple platforms, and a lot of people had ideas of giving their own twist or spin on this content on gaming. And I do attribute a lot of that to being shut in the house.
Yeah.
But yes. When did you start your own content creation, though? Was it about that timing or earlier?
No, actually, this game I have been sort of working on, I probably started maybe 20 years ago.
Oh,
so I've always enjoyed the creation part of gaming.
Perfect.
So much so that I started making my own board games as well. One of them is actually pretty close to completion, so maybe one day I'll find someone to help me fund putting that out there.
The production of it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know people who actually, factories, actually, because, as previously advertised, I am the chief Phoenix Wrangler at PhoenixDice.com, where you can get all the gear that you require for your adventuring. But, I know people who make board games. So if you ever need, let me know, because that would be super exciting to see a physical board game made by you.
I would also love to see a physical board game being my beat, and I might take you up on that offer. I'm just actually finishing off the artwork for it.
Nice.
Which I've got this lovely person in Mexico who's been doing all the art for me called, I think you can follow them on Papal Alchemy on Instagram.
Nice.
If you want to see some of the stuff they do. It's super cutesy. So if that's sort of like cute kobolds.
Very chibi.
If anyone's seen my online persona icon, they drew that one.
Oh.
So the little kobold wearing different suits for the different seasons and however I'm feeling.
Perfect.
So that's the vibe of the board game I'm going for.
And is it this specific board game that's been in the works for like the 20
No,
years?
this one's been in the works for a while too, maybe 15 years. So you can sort of see I am one of those hobby rotationists who likes to dabble in a hobby for a while, get into it, then after a few months goes, I'm going to switch to something else, and then dabble in that for a little bit, and sort of goes in a cycle.
Yes. You're part, this is a club. Absolutely.
Yeah. But now I've cut out some of them that I don't want to deal with anymore. D&D, Magic. I've sort of cut those out so I can focus on doing, what I really want to do, which is create my own systems
games.
and hopefully people play them and enjoy them.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, the whole like connection thing of nerds on the internet now. Like, how did you find your artist?
Yes, through the internet.
Browsing IG one day.
I think I just saw their art on Instagram. Anyway, I think I
we all
hired
kind of
them to
meet
do
each other
something and
somewhere.
then sort of went from there. Yeah, now and then I just hire them to do random stuff for me so I can support their work.
Yeah, it's great to support independent artists who are doing character art. I personally love investing in character art because like seeing this character that I've been playing, right, brought to actual, not physical life. I guess there's an image created so I can see them. It's really cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and going back to your point about COVID, that's when I switched to creating for D&D because I saw some of the stuff out there and I thought I could do this. Turns out I sort of could, but I would not recommend it. To do something good it's hard work to sort of produce something usable. But I mean, as someone who's been running games for a while, it's probably a little bit easier for me to create a story narrative that people could play. But I also would never recommend making your own RPG system. Like I said, 20 years going on. Just rip off someone else's, to be honest.
Well, I mean, aren't all RPG systems kind of rip-offs of everybody else's? Because they all, they all share elements. They all have common elements. And if you're not using dice, then, you're using some other random generation system. So I obviously prefer the dice, but,
Well, you might be upset because my system only uses D6s.
Oh, that's fine.
So your 7 dice sets, even though they are beautiful, would not get much use.
I have actually gotten so many requests to produce or just offer D6 sets because it's not just your upcoming very popular game, I'm sure it'll be, but like Warhammer does D6s.
Yeah, I think I did ask you about that at some point.
Yep, at some point. I get a lot of these questions. But yes, then there's the complication of ordering them from the wholesaler and will they actually sell them to me in a specific D6 count, yada yada, and then I have to create new inventory on the website. That part's okay, I can do that. But yeah,
here's a little peek into the
hopefully
behind the scenes of creating your own game. It's not just writing rules. If you want to get physical products, it's a whole process.
There's so many steps. I initially was like, I'm going to open a dice shop, not understanding how many layers of just everything that are not fun at all, that you have to do in order to start something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true for not just dice shops, for just about everything else. But righto. You create games, but like, what do you draw the inspiration from?
Well, I've drawn the inspiration from probably from the very beginning. So I said that Dungeoneer game was 2 dice. You roll a dice, add a number. It was super fun. There wasn't any saving throws or anything like that to throw in there to stop people from doing things and having fun. So it went from there. I used to play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or I don't even know what they call that these days.
So I think that was second edition.
Second edition, yes, correct. I played that, and that was, if anyone remembers that was a nightmare.
Yeah, it was very crunchy.
Good old THACO numbers. Didn't make any sense.
Nope.
I played that with my teen friends on and off. I don't think we ever really got past like one adventure before we just sort of gave up
Right.
playing it. I also played a lot of Shadowrun as well.
Oh, yes.
Third edition, fourth edition possibly,
Okay.
where you just roll buckets of D6s.
Just buckets and buckets of them.
Yeah. And that was kind of fun. So I remembered how fun rolling lots of dice is, but then the stuff behind Shadowrun with that dice was not so much fun. Then I just thought, well, and I was in Korea for a while, so there wasn't much of an RPG scene there at all while I was there.
Right. Well, expat community aside, in order to play with, or I guess find a larger gaming community, you must speak the local language. And did you speak Korean at the time?
Not enough to play RPG games with
Right,
people.
because it's really language intensive, generally speaking.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure there was a community, but they would have been hard to locate and very difficult to communicate with.
Yeah, and this was the early 2000s as well. So RPG, I mean, there would have been possibly some RPGs, but they would have been locally made RPGs. I don't think D&D had even made it onto the
It didn't really
map then.
see much popularity until at least the 2010s, I would imagine, when Critical Role started, peaking.
Yeah, so I got online, of course, because, it was the early 2000s. Go to MSN Communities, I think it was called back then.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Found like a group who were doing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons roleplay. It was all text-based. There was very little actual mechanics in the community.
But I actually love that. There are some characters that you can only be, or there are some things as a DM you can only do if it's play by post or write by writing, because I'm really terrible at accents. I can't do accents for the life of me. And I ran a barbarian, Tabaxi barbarian, for a very long time, who spoke like the kids that I taught English to. But I can't imitate that in real life. So I could never be this character, really at a table. But he was extremely popular in the game that we were playing for years and years, play by post. And depending on your skill as a writer, then you can really paint some, gorgeous imagery within each other's, all the players, the DM's minds by using, in text form.
And that's sort of how I got to meet some people online there who I've now visited in real life in the States, which was also fun. So even back in the 2000s, early 2000s, that was still a thing to meet people online and make friends and go visit them. Didn't need to be COVID to happen.
No.
COVID, I think, just hyper boosted it.
It did. I had a couple of friends come here to Taiwan. Arrow and Nicole, they actually were on this show just talking about how we're all very happy that nobody was a weirdo. Yes,
that is the risk, right?
Right. Because if we've never really met in real life, then who's to say and somebody's, not a weirdo.
Yeah. Well, see, in our scenario, I would be the weirdo because I've seen you all on stream, seen you interact, and you must all be, you all seem really nice, which is why I stuck around. And now I've come to visit you guys. You're like, right, who's this weirdo? We've never seen him. We might have spoken online. That's about it.
But it worked out. Nobody's weirdo.
Exactly. No one's weirded out.
It's great though. It's COVID hyper boosted it, so people are now definitely more present on the internet. They did a lot more video based gaming. So you saw each other's faces.
Yep.
And I really hope that this continues as a trend. People travel to different places around the world.
Yeah, or me too. But just to reminisce on Carney's Sideshow a little bit, I haven't turned on Switch since you guys went off air. So Twitch, sorry, not Twitch.
Hope you're still playing the Nintendo Switch if you have one. but yeah. Oh, I miss Carney's Sideshow.
Me too.
For a bit, he was running kind of like an Acquisitions Incorporated version of, they're like one shots, but it was the team just taking assignments, right? And I miss Smash.
I miss Smash too.
He's my second favorite character ever because he was such a big dummy. And yeah, the chemistry between players and a DM at a table, if you can find it, like really great chemistry, there's nothing quite like it.
Absolutely. It's I think it's one of the reasons that I like to DM over playing is seeing the reactions you get from a story twist or something.
Oh, on your players' faces.
On your players' faces.
So
even though you've seen it coming, you're like, everyone should be able to see this coming. They never see it coming.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Which just still amazes me to this day, even after playing games for 20 years. All the time, it's like, oh, I've put in this twist. And they're like, oh, that's amazing.
Or it's like the face like,
or the shock or the screaming. Sometimes the crying.
Sometimes the crying. As a DM, I understand because I've also DM'd. Sometimes that is your job. You got to create. The sweet is not as sweet without the sour. That's the way it is.
Absolutely. It's
Any really cool tabletop experiences that you can share, being the forever DM or otherwise?
maybe. I'll have to think pretty hard about that because there's been quite a few. But I think the best gaming I've had and gaming group that I did was it was a bunch of players that had just started D&D because they were just getting into it.
Oh, that's great
the COVID
though.
time.
Like seeing the game through a new player perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. And we were actually most of the players that we were working together. So we got talking. We were talking about D&D, and they're like, "Oh, I like D&D." And I'm like, "Well, you know what? I'll run a game for you. Come and
that's always how it goes.
Come and play it." So I think there was at least 3 people who I worked with as well.
Okay.
Which was kind of hard because I did all my game planning at work, so I had to sort of squirrel it away from them so they couldn't see what was going to happen in their game.
Of course.
But I ran the Dragonlance world.
Nice. Okay.
This was before Wizards released the latest actual Dragonlance stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I ran the old school 2nd edition modules.
Excellent.
That were based
and because
on the
they're
book.
brand new, they never heard of it before.
Yeah, they didn't know anything about Dragonlance, which was fun. So I just sort of modernized the story a little bit.
Great.
Because reading those books again in the 2020s.
Must have been a trip.
They are not good.
Must have...
They have problematic things in them. So I avoided all that. But
products of the time.
Products of the time, yes. That is definitely the term to use. And that went for about 5 years, I think, that campaign.
Wow. I just closed one that went for like 5 years. They're quite accomplishments because, scheduling conflicts and, But congratulations. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was quite good to run with them. And I think it inspired a few people to go, oh, I'm going to,
DM
start my own groups and
Yay.
that sort of thing. So they've done that, which is great. But yeah, that was amazing fun. Great characters. They really got into the story. And it's a little tip for DMs out there. Dedicating one of your players or one of your characters, I should say, as the heart of the party. So sort of have the tale sort of revolve a little bit around them to get started.
Yep.
Helps a lot.
Yeah.
So everyone sort of rallies behind that character to help them achieve their
I've always kind of, that's actually interesting to state purposefully. I've always had that happen naturally. Like somebody is the cinnamon roll and everyone revolves around them to protect this one person. And then it kind of gives you just a natural opportunity to do that. But it's a good tip.
Yeah, you can do that. And then, of course, if you're going a long-term campaign, you can then change the spotlight to another character as they sort of hit their side story to finish their story as well. So going through each character had a story arc within that campaign.
Yes.
Which I think was...
So everyone felt super tied in and
super
involved.
invested.
Oh,
and
yay.
involved.
That's the best.
And the final battle was against the Queen of Darkness. So in her 5-headed dragon form. Tiamat, basically. Yeah. Old school Tiamat.
Old school Tiamat. That's the best. Yay. Okay. I mean, some of our listeners will not know what we're talking about, but just Google her picture. It's great. So, any tips that you could give anyone out there who's interested in playing maybe not D&D, but other tabletop RPGs? Anything to start with, or if they want to start, if among their friend group, I can't speak today. If among their friend group, they would be the prospective DM or game master.
Be prepared? Question mark.
Can you ever be?
Don't over prepare. You can never estimate what your players are going to do, and don't stop them from doing things. If something unexpected happens, roll with it and try and bring it back to what you need. I wrote Battle of the Bards, which Carney Sideshow played.
Yep.
And there were a lot of things in there that happened that when I was designing the adventure, I was like, I would have never thought of that as a solution to the problem.
Well, yeah, because every time you get a table of people together, you've got another set of minds that all will work differently than anyone can really imagine, right? Because, none of us are the same person. So, yes.
Exactly. It's a hard balance to hit, but it's very satisfying when you do. So if you are preparing to DM, don't expect to go A to B. Always plan for A, B, C, D, Z.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's out of order.
Yeah. And I shouldn't say don't plan for it. I should say just try and anticipate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let the players create their own solutions.
Rolling with it is actually a fantastic piece of advice because the rule of cool, it's like if someone's doing something, don't stop them from doing it because it might wind up to extra plot hooks or interesting evolution in the story that you had not anticipated yourself, but you can now include. So that's always fun. Thank you so much for geeking out with me, Cody.
No problem. It's a good time.
Yeah, and thanks listeners for tuning into Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang, and we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Geek Out.